Scroll of Samuel. We finished with the last chapter, this test that David goes through, and we are now into 1st and 2nd Kings. And 1st and 2nd Kings, they're going to begin with the end of David's lifetime and the transition from power from him and to his son Solomon. There's a little bit of drama there. People are vying for the throne. And then it's going to continue through a series of kings, basically all of the kings until the exile starts and there are no more kings. So this is all of the kings in 1st and 2nd Kings, I guess except for Saul, pretty much. And spoiler alert, most of them are bad, very bad. There are a few of them that are good, but we're going to have a central problem. Remember in Samuel we had this central problem. Why has God accepted David and Samuel when they had the same problems as their predecessors and God rejected them? And that was something for us to deal with. There's going to be a central problem in 1st and 2nd Kings. And that's going to be, why does God end it all? Why does the exile start with Josiah? When Josiah is a good king. Josiah is not just a good king, like, he might be the best king. I mean, like, the best king. We'll get there eventually. And we can talk about that, because there's some other good ones. But why is God going to start the exile then, when there were all of these bad kings, and we finally get a good king, and now the punishment's going to come? And that's going to be our central question. We're not going to get to that today. That's going to be our question to struggle with, to wrestle with. Where we're going today is the structure of this book, or these two books together, is it's a prophet sandwich. The kings are the bread on the outside, and in the middle we have Elijah and Elisha. And Elijah's at the end of 1st Kings. Elisha's at the beginning of 2nd Kings. There's a transition between the two. And they sit here in the middle. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time with Elisha. And his story starts in 1 Kings chapter 17. And I'm just going to start. I'm going to read a couple of verses here. We'll stop and we'll think about it. And it starts now. Elijah the Tishbite from Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab, "As the Lord, the God of Israel lives, whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years, except at my word." Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah. Now, anybody notice anything? I tried to emphasize it with the way I was reading this. Does somebody notice something here that's just a little bit weird with the way that reads?
He didn't have the Lord's blessing.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he has the Lord's blessing. I mean, the way we read this, he comes along, he says, "I'm saying this, and it's not going to rain until I say so." And then we have this word, then. Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah. So this creates a question for us here now, and it's very interesting because if you go back to Balaam, you remember Balak wanted Balaam to curse the Israelites, and what did Balaam say?
Only do what the Lord says I can do.
I can only say what the Lord says to say. I can only say what he tells me. Now that was a while ago, but it turns out that just in a couple chapters we're going to have this prophet called Micaiah. It's in chapter 22. And we're going to have a very similar thing where there's a bunch of false prophets of these false gods, and they're all going to give the king good news. And anyway, there's two kings. The other kings would be like, "Well, don't we have a prophet from Yahweh?" And they're like, "Yeah, but I don't like him. He never gives me good news." So they go and get Micaiah, and as they're taking him there, the army guys are like, "Hey man, you better give him good news. We got all these other prophets. They've given him good news." And Micaiah says, "I can only say what the Lord says," which is an echo back to Balaam, and it comes after this, kind of to get you thinking about this. Well, wait a minute. If God didn't tell him this, how is this prophet coming and saying, "Hey, it's not going to rain until I say so," if the word of the Lord hasn't come to him? Now, I could leave you with that question, but I'm going to give you the answer this morning. It turns out that God has said this. Back in the Torah, there's a bunch of warnings as they go into the land. There's blessings and curses. God says, look, if you don't worship only me and you worship other gods, I'm not going to send rain. And so it turns out God has said this. But it's interesting that God didn't tell him, hey, go now and say this. It wasn't a direct word of the Lord, but it's something that God has said, and Elijah has seen, hey, we're not following God. God said, if you don't do what I say, it's not going to rain. And so Elijah steps up and he makes this proclamation. Now, here's where it gets interesting. That should give us a bunch of questions. Like, one of them is, well, if
I was going to say it's back in Deuteronomy 28. What's interesting to me too is in James, when he's citing in the New Testament, when he's citing Elijah as an example of a praying man for us, he says Elijah prayed for rain, and it rained. And he prayed that it wouldn't rain.
and
And here it doesn't use that terminology that he prayed for rain, but he just proclaimed it's not going to rain in keeping with what God had said before. But here it doesn't describe it as him praying for rain, correct?
right, yeah, he just shows up and he says this. Now that's very interesting. So as we go through this story, like, keep that in mind and think of that James as a commentary on this, because that's what it is. It's a commentary on this. And so it would be interesting to think about his perspective on what's happened here. So thank you. I like that. Okay, so one of our questions might be, well, if God said that he was going to withhold rain, if they were worshiping other gods, then why is it still raining? Why hasn't God withheld the rain? All right, let's keep going. Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah, leave here, turn eastward, and hide in the Kerith ravine, east of the Jordan. You will drink from the brook, and I have directed the ravens to supply you with food there. So he did what the Lord had told him. He went to the Kerith ravine, east of the Jordan, and stayed there. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. Kind of a famous story. He gets fed by the ravens here. The question is, why has God done this? Why has he sent him to this place? And he's going to get his food from ravens and drink from the brook, and he's going to hang out there. Now, instead of asking for your all's answers, I'm going to tell you, like, the way I've always heard it, the way I always thought growing up, is that, well, it's not going to rain, things are going to be bad for a while. He's got to go hide out for a while. God's got to take care of him over here in this brook, right? It makes sense. And because if you show up and you say, hey, it's not going to rain until I say so, the next day it doesn't rain, how much of an impact have you made? Not very much, especially in this area of the world. I mean, it'd be different, like, if you were in Seattle and you were like, it's not going to rain until I say so, and it doesn't rain the next day, people might start to get worried. But if you're in Israel, it doesn't rain every day. They have a rainy season. So not much of an impact. So it's going to take a while, okay? I got to send you over here so you can hang out for a while. And that's a very it's a very Western way of thinking about this. The Eastern way of thinking about this is, what is God saying? So if I pose that question to you this way, what is God saying with this? We can think about it a little bit differently. So think about Elijah here. God has sent him to solitude. I mean, what are you going to do all day if you're sitting in this ravine? What are you going to do? You're going to sit and think, right? That's what I'm going to do. It's what all of us are going to do. You've got nothing to do but think out here sitting in this ravine. God needs Elijah to think. And then we got these ravens, this very Western way of thinking. Ravens are they eat carrion, right? Yeah, they eat carrion. So he's getting like this nasty kind of food. Probably maybe they're bringing him like a piece of an antelope or something. But that's not what it says. What does it say the ravens are bringing him? Bread and meat. You know, so like a loaf of bread was walking along in the desert and it died, and the ravens went and got the bread and they brought it to Elijah, right? Because they're carrying, right? Now, where did this bread come from? How's he going to get bread?
It's almost bread from heaven.
It is sort of like bread from heaven. Okay, who makes bread? I don't know. I'm gonna leave you with the switch. And it says in the morning and in the evening. If I'm not mistaken, this is the times that he is praying. And so he's out here in this ravine. He's got nothing to do but think. And in come the ravens, and they have food. It's been made by humans. Bread is food that humans make. As far as I know, we're the only things on this earth that make bread. In the morning, as he sits down to pray, food shows up. I don't know what you would question or what you would ask when the food shows up. I'd be like, I wonder where this bread came from. I wonder who made this bread. And the meat, I don't think it's carrying because it says bread and meat. I think it's meat that goes with the bread. Right? Every morning for we don't know how long, for a while. In the morning, where'd this bread come from? He gets to sit and think about that. Where did this meat come from? And he gets to sit and think about that. And in the evening, the same thing. And in the morning, and in the evening, and in the morning, and in the evening, over and over and over again, he gets to sit with this question. Now,
I'm not educated on how far ravens can travel in a day, but I just wonder, how far were they commuting back and forth to bring him this bread and meat?
how far? That's a great question. And he might be thinking about that. Is it just over the hill? Is it further away? Now, I'm not going to give you the answer to this. Now, here's one of the problems that I see with our Western way of thinking. Is we get a question like this. We're like, I don't know. You know what? God does what he does. We cannot sit with questions. How many times have you been to a sermon and the preacher gave you one question and didn't give you an answer and said, go think about that? And it wasn't me. How many times? Never in my life did that happen. Never. I've read 5 verses and had 50 questions. And we have seen that the Bible is perfectly okay with crafting a whole story, the whole point of which is to give you a question and not give you the answer and make you go and think about it. And how is God teaching us? How is God teaching Elijah right now? What I need you to do, Elijah, is to go in solitude and sit and think about this question. Where is your food coming from, Elijah? Day and night, day and night, day and night. And does God give him the answer? Does God tell Elijah what he needs him to understand? No, he sends him to a ravine. He gives him a picture of what's happening, and he asks him to think about it. And apparently, like us, Elijah doesn't get it. Sometime later, the brook dried up because there had been no rain in the land. Then the word of the Lord came to him. That then suggests that there's a pause here, like Elijah isn't quite getting it yet, and then the water dries up. What do you think God's telling him here? Let you sit with that for a minute. He's supposed to understand something. He's not quite getting it. Then the word of the Lord came to him, go at once to Zarephath in the region of Sidon and stay there. I have directed a widow there to supply you with food. So he went to Zarephath, and when he came to the town gate, a widow was there gathering sticks. He called to her and asked, would you bring me a little water in a jar so I may have a drink? I mean, the brook dried up, right? So he's thirsty. Hey, could you bring me some water? As she was going to get it, he called, "And bring me, please, a piece of bread." This guy's great, right? Like, he showed up. "I need to give me some water. Oh, I need some bread, too." Okay, you kind of get a picture of what he's doing here. "As surely as the Lord your God lives," she replied, "I don't have any bread. Only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug. I am gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." What's happening with this widow and her son? They're starving to death. Elijah doesn't get the lesson in the ravine, and God sends him somewhere, and what does he show him when he gets there? The consequences of what he has decided to say. Who gets hurt first when the rain dries up? Now, his adversary is King Ahab. Think Ahab starving to death? I don't think Ahab starving to death. In fact, that was sort of the point of our last lesson, right? Like, famine comes, it's not going to hurt David. It's not going to hurt anyone who eats at his table. Who is it going to hurt? The poorest, the most vulnerable, are the first ones that are going to starve to death. And God takes him here and he shows him this. Not a problem, Elijah says. Not a problem at all. Elijah said to her, "Don't be afraid. Go home and do as you have said, but first make a small loaf of bread for me from what you have and bring it to me. And then make something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. The jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land." Later, there's going to be rain that comes as part of our story. And I find it interesting that everyone else in the land is like, "Rain! Rain!" And I picture this widow being like, "No! No! It's raining! My oil and my flour are going to dry up." So she went away and did as Elijah had told her. So there was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and for her family. How many other widows you think there are? And Elijah didn't show up to their house. What happens to them? Just getting ready to die that day. I just said, "Not a problem. Not a problem. We're going to have food. God's going to provide food for us, of course." Verse 15. So she went away and did as Elijah had told her. So there was food every day for, I already said this, for Elijah and for the woman and her family. For the jar of flour was not used up, and the jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah. This time it seems he's spoken what God told him. It seems like God gave him this message. Verse 17. Sometime later, the son of the woman who owned the house became ill. He grew worse and worse and finally stopped breathing. She said to Elijah, "What do you have against me, man of God? Did you come to remind me of my sin and kill my son?" So many times I just read over these words to Elijah. These words have power behind them. She says to Elijah, "Did you come to remind me of my sin and kill my son?" What has Elijah done?
Done that to a lot of households.
It's exactly what Elijah has done. He showed up, his whole point, his MO, was to remind Israel of their sin and to kill people so that they would understand and that they would change. This is what he's doing. But he doesn't seem to get it, right? He doesn't seem to understand that that's what he's done. This question is the question for him. Give me your son, Elijah replied. Now, what do we think Elijah's going to do? Oh, you're starving to death. No problem. We'll just make this miracle, and we'll have oil and we'll have flour until there's rain, right? Problem solved, okay? Again, he's like, okay, give me your son. I think this time he's a little shaken this time. He's not so sure because he took him from her arms and carried him to the upper room where he was staying and laid him on his bed. Then he cried out to the Lord, Lord my God, have you brought tragedy even on this widow I am staying with by causing her son to die? God, what are you doing, God? Look at this tragedy that you're bringing on this widow. What's up, God? Is God the one that decided not to make it rain? Or did Elijah decide that now was the time to not make it rain? Then he stretched himself out on the boy 3 times and cried out to the Lord, Lord my God, let this boy's life return to him. Then the Lord heard Elijah's cry. Anyone surprised God heard his cry? I'm not surprised because he is the God who hears the cry.
I had a feeling he's been hearing the cry from the land for a while now. And now he's finally heard it from Elijah.
He's finally heard it from Elijah. Man, you made me want to jump ahead of myself. This story is going to answer the question, why hasn't God caused the famine? Why hasn't God caused the drought? What is God doing? God's working. God's doing something. God is working on a fix. This is part of it. This is part of it. If that's where we're going with this, what is God doing? What has God been doing? We know what Elijah's doing. Elijah's causing a famine. What is God doing so far? Oh, he's been doing something. When the word of the Lord comes in this chapter, what is he doing?
He was still making it rain. In the beginning.
He's teaching. The Lord is teaching. And who is he teaching? He's teaching the prophet. If we're going to fix this, I need the prophet to understand something. And I think more in general, the people are going to have to understand. Now, the people are going to learn from the prophet. But if we're going to fix this situation, I need the leadership to learn. I need them to learn something. That's what God is doing. If we have rain or we don't have rain, is it going to fix this problem in Israel? Boy, let me just leave you with that question. Because that's a great question for the next chapter. That's an incredible question for the next chapter. If we don't have rain, if we have a drought for a while and then we have rain, is that going to fix things? It's probably going to be next week maybe before we get to that. I'll leave you with that question. We'll at least get an answer for it, okay? I'm not going to leave you with that one forever. Okay? But I think if the answer to this problem was that all we need to do is to cause a famine for a while and then give them rain, then Israel will understand and then things will be fixed. Is that what's going to happen? No. I already told you how the story ends. It ends in exile. Is there going to be a famine? Is there going to be a drought and then rain? You know the answer is yeah. Doesn't fix it. Not in the long term, doesn't fix it. We already had that. That was last week. That was one of the punishments that David faced. It temporarily fixed things. There was a lesson that was learned. Didn't fix them for good. Elijah picked up, this is verse 23, Elijah picked up the child and carried him down from the room into the house. He gave him to his mother and said, "Look, your son is alive." Then the woman said to Elijah, "Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth." She started to learn something, hadn't she? Isn't it interesting that she says this at this point? Because I think I would have been, like when I went to the jars every day, and I was getting flour, and I was getting oil, I think I'd be like, I think there's something with this guy. I think he might be connected with Yahweh. But it's not until this point. Now she's starting to figure out, oh, I see what's going on. But has Elijah learned? I don't know. Let's keep going. Chapter 18. After a long time, in the 3rd year, the word of the Lord came to Elijah. "Go and present yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the land." Now, what's your problem with that? If you've been looking closely, you've been reading this closely, what's the problem with that statement? How did it begin? Elijah shows up and he says, "It's not going to rain until I say so." And then how this is going to get resolved is that God says, "Okay, Elijah, it's been long enough. Let's go make it rain. Okay? Let's go make it rain. Let's do it." That's what this chapter is about. Now, the famine was severe in Samaria. And I'm going to skip all this, but it hasn't rained for a while. That gives you several problems, all kinds of problems. One, you need water for yourself. And we've seen that with Elijah, right? He ran out of water in this ravine. It keeps the crops from growing, so you're having trouble getting food, but your livestock is also having trouble getting food. And so Ahab and Obadiah are going to go on this adventure to try to find some green grass somewhere for their livestock so they don't have to kill all of the horses. That's what the next few chapters are about. And so as Elijah is going on, or Obadiah is going along, he finds Elijah. This is verse 7. As Obadiah was walking along, Elijah met him. Obadiah recognized him, bowed down to the ground, and said, "Is it really you, my lord Elijah?" "Yes," he replied. "Go tell your master, Elijah is here." I love this next verse. "What have I done wrong?" asked Obadiah. Could you just picture this? Obadiah has been with the king all this time. He's in close with the king, but he's sort of like a spy or something. He's been keeping these prophets alive in caves, giving them food and water, 100 of them. Yeah, 50 in each. In 2 caves, 100 prophets. And he finally finds the prophet. He's like, "Oh, it's you." And Elijah, the only thing he says to him, he's like, "Yeah, it's me. Go tell Ahab that I'm here." And Obadiah's like, "No!" It's like, why? He's like, "I know how you are. Spirit of the Lord carried you off everywhere. Ahab's been looking for you, man. 3 years it hasn't rained. Who's the one that said it wasn't going to rain? You. Ahab's been looking for you. And now you want me to go tell Ahab that you're here? You ain't going to be here when I come back. I know you. Ain't no way you're going to be here. And then where's all Obadiah going to be?" Let's skip down. 13. "Haven't you heard, my Lord, what I did while Jezebel was killing the prophets of the Lord?" This is important. He's going to tell Elijah this. Now before, we just had, the narrator says, Obadiah's been keeping these prophets alive. Obadiah is going to tell Elijah, "Haven't you heard what I did? I hid 100 of the Lord's prophets in 2 caves, 50 in each, and supplied them with food and water. And now you tell me to go to my master and say, Elijah is here. He will kill me." Elijah said, "As the Lord Almighty lives, whom I serve." That's how he started, by the way. I will surely present myself to Ahab today. Then we got a famous story. I didn't know how far we were going to get. We're here, man. We're here on Mount Carmel. The showdown. Here's how we're going to do this. There is so much cultural context to this that we miss. I mean, this story is amazing, even if you don't know it. But here's the thing that you need to know about Baal and Ashtoreth. Baal is the god of agricultural fertility. He is the one that makes it rain in their culture. And if you go all the way back to the very beginning, to the first story in the Garden of Eden, the thing that we pointed out is that this is going to be about how we get our food and how we have children. Those are the two most important things to these people, to everyone that lives back in this time. They don't have a reliable supply of food, and if you don't have food, then you can't make the next generation. You're not sure that you can feed your kids. And if you don't have food, you don't have the nutrition to make kids. The two are connected, but that's what they care about. That's what they care about. And so that's what these two gods are going to be about. And their worship of, why are they worshiping false gods? To make it rain, because that's how we grow food. And if it doesn't rain, I can't control that. I need some way to try to influence whether it's going to rain or not. And so they make up these false gods. They say, well, if we do this, then the God will be happy with us and then it will rain. That is the underlying thing, one of the underlying things of this whole story, okay? And so they have two gods. Baal is the god that makes it rain. Ashtoreth is the god that helps humans have babies, because we also don't really know, we know what we do to make that work, but we don't know what goes on inside there, and why it doesn't work all the time. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Who knows why you have babies, okay? So we've got a goddess that is over that, and so that we can, make it work this time, right? We got these two gods. Now, Baal, his symbol is a bull. And without getting too graphic, the two go together. Baal and Ashtoreth go together. And when they get together, Baal makes it rain. Okay? But it hasn't rained for 3 years. Now, this could be Baal is angry with you, and he's getting angrier and angrier, and we haven't figured out how to make him happy yet. And so that's why it hasn't rained. We got to make him happy. Or in their story, the two get together and Baal makes it rain, and so they're not together, or either something's wrong with their relationship, or something's wrong with Baal. And so Elijah sets up this contest, the famous contest. Get them all, man. 450 prophets from Baal, 400 from Asher. That's a lot of these prophets to these two gods. And let's see if we can get them together. Let's see if we can appease Baal. And he gives them home court advantage. Let's go to your mountain where you worship Baal. You've got an altar there. We'll use the bull. And what am I asking for? We're asking for the God to set fire to this thing, right? We're going to set it all up. No fire. Now, how is a God going to get the fire there, right? Just logically, you got a God. They're up there, right? So the fire's going to have to come down from up there to light this thing on fire, right? And Baal, he's the god that makes it rain. Now, what usually comes with rain? Not all the time, but a lot of times, what comes with rain? Thunder and lightning. And thunder is his voice. Lightning is his tool. Okay, so we're setting this up. This is what Baal does. He makes lightning. Make lightning hit the spot and set this on fire. And then, the story, they start dancing and calling out. Along about noon, the trash talk starts. Of course he's going to talk trash. And let's see, let's go over here in chapter 18. They dance around and there's no response. They keep saying there's no response, there's no response, there's no response. In verse 27, at noon Elijah began to taunt them. Shout louder, he said. Surely he is a god. Perhaps he is deep in thought, or busy, or traveling. Maybe he is sleeping and must be awakened. There's been a lot of stuff said about what this means. And interesting, that word busy, I've heard that it says, well, maybe he's using the bathroom. That word is used one time, and it's right here. We don't know exactly what this word means, but we know their story. We know what they're trying to do. They're trying to get the two together. And so when you read these in that context, it's like, I don't know, man, maybe he left her. Maybe he's off somewhere. Maybe you can call him back to her. Maybe he's sleeping. Maybe your God is so impotent, he's just over there asleep, and he can't get up. That's how the story starts. David and Abishag. David's over there under the blankets, can't keep warm. Maybe Baal's like that. Maybe he's busy, like maybe he's trying. Maybe he's trying, not having much luck. Man, what's wrong with Baal? Let me tell you the God that has no trouble starting the fire. Yahweh has no trouble starting the fire. Now Elijah, he gets the water and he pours it on there, right? We got 4 jugs. We're going to do it 3 times. Now we kind of look at this and we're like, Elijah's like, let's dial up the difficulty. Let's make this harder, okay? That's not what's going on here. We don't need to make this any harder. Like, we're asking the God up there to have lightning, fire, whatever come down and consume this. Like, if we see that happen, does it really matter if there's water on the thing? Like, if we see the fire come down and consume it, does it matter that there's water? They're on top of a mountain. It has not rained for 3 years. What is the most precious thing they have on the top of this mountain? Water. How did it get there? It didn't fall from the sky. Somebody hauled it up there. And my understanding is, like, this is a pretty high mountain. Like, it's a trek. And somebody has carried this water up there. A lot of it. It's a lot of water. And what is Elijah asking them to do? Let's sacrifice this water. The most precious thing that we have right now, let's sacrifice it to Yahweh. And this ties in with one of their festivals that, I'm going to say we don't have time to go into that. I don't know. I haven't studied it enough. But this ties into one of their festivals. If we sacrifice this water to God, to Yahweh, Yahweh will provide for us. We're running out of time. We're going to have to wrap it up here. It works. It works.
Well, he asked them to do it 3 times.
He asked them to do it 3 times. Which is sort of like a test. That's like a test, yeah. It's like a test. They're being tested. They do it. They do it 3 times. And then when the fire comes down, what do they say? Yahweh is God. Yahweh is God. That's what Elijah means, by the way. The word Elijah. My God is Yahweh. It works. And then it's going to rain. So first, like, Elijah's like, I know what to do now. We're going to kill all those prophets. All 950 of them. Sorry, 850 of these prophets. There's a huge slaughter of them. Elijah's like, okay, now it's time to rain. What does God make him sweat? 7 times he's got to pray. And then finally you get a cloud rising the size of a man's fist. And Elijah, I don't know about you, but like if I saw that cloud, I'm like, well, it's like some wispy, like I think there's something coming over the. Elijah's like, good enough, okay, it's coming, it's rain, it's coming. So he goes back and he tells Ahab, and what's happened here now is that like Ahab has believed. Not only the people, but Ahab has believed. And I'm going to have to leave you right here. It's worked. The people have believed. The people have come to our side. They've said that Yahweh is God. Ahab, it seems like he started to understand. This must fix things, right? This must fix things. All we needed was for it to not rain and to have this contest and show the people, and then it would rain. That's what we need. And if you want to find out why it's next, you're going to have to come back next week because we're only halfway through Elijah's story. This is really the only part that we talk about a lot. But there's much more with Elijah. All right, any questions? I will give you a chance. I didn't give you all much chance to talk this morning. Anybody have any questions or thoughts? Yep. All right. See you next week.